It's a day of hope, awareness, and reflection. A day that will show Canadians the path forward. Join CBC as we explore the rich and diverse cultures, voices, experiences, and histories of First Nations, Inuit, and Métis people with a full day of programming, concerts, documentaries, and special events right across the country. This Monday on radio, TV, online, and on demand on CBC Listen and CBC Gem.
You know the feeling of finding a really good podcast? Or the feeling of someone always being there, like your favorite radio show? Stream CBC Podcasts, CBC Music, and CBC Radio anytime, anywhere. Download the CBC Listen.
This is CBC News. Good afternoon. I'm Rosanna Hempel. At 12 o'clock, it's 21 in Winnipeg. Sunny today, high of 27. It'll feel like 31. The Manitoba government is extending the gas tax holiday. It's brought savings for drivers, but it's also hurt the province's finances. CBC's Ian Fraze explains.
Drivers are getting a break at the pumps for 3 more months. The NDP promised in last year's election a gas tax holiday. It took effect this January and was only supposed to last for 6 months. But the government has extended the holiday for the second time. It will last the rest of the year. Premier Wabkanu said in a news release the province is doing what it can to address the rising cost of living. The holiday has saved drivers 14 cents a litre. And it's contributed to Manitoba having one of the lowest inflation rates in the country. But it comes at a cost. Manitoba is losing out on $340 million in tax revenue this year. Canoe warned just a few weeks ago the province will soon exercise more fiscal restraint. Ian Fraze, CBC News, Winnipeg.
The president and CEO of Cancer Care Manitoba says she doesn't take criticism personally. Her comments come after some medical professionals complained about burnout and a distrust of leadership at Cancer Care. Doctors Manitoba says it has heard from physicians who say their workload is too much, but they fear reprisals if they come forward. Cancer Care's Dr. Sri Navaratnam says the agency has been dealing with workload issues after 16 physicians retired following the pandemic. Navaratnam says they're actively recruiting and acknowledges there have been some challenges.
So when you do this job, you make some difficult decisions, and it affects few people at times. And so I'm not in a popularity contest. I want to do the right thing for the people. That's the only reason I'm doing this job for.
Navaratnam says they recently held weekend clinics to try to reduce the workload. She has also met with Doctors Manitoba to discuss some of the issues raised. The City of Winnipeg wants to make an accessible taxi pilot project a permanent service. In 2022, the city and 2 cab companies started a vehicle for hire dispatch service for people who use wheelchairs or have other mobility needs. At the time, passengers waited as long as 2 hours for an inaccessible taxi. Now, more than 90% of the wait times are down below 20 minutes. City Council will vote next month to make the program permanent with some minor changes. Parliament is voting this afternoon on a Conservative motion of non-confidence in the Liberal minority government. But it's doomed to fail since neither the NDP nor Bloc Québécois say they'll support it. Bloc leader Yves-François Blanchet says he first wants the Liberals to pass 2 bills by the end of October. One would match old age security payments to seniors aged 74 and under to those 75 and up. The other would exempt supply-managed farm sectors such as dairy and eggs from any future trade negotiations.
If those 2 bills are not changed into laws by the 24th of October, the Bloc will engage in negotiations with other opposition leaders with a view to defeating the Liberal government.
In the meantime, Blanchet says the Bloc will vote against any non-confidence motions. Now to the Middle East, where Israel and Hezbollah continue to exchange airstrikes. And the Hezbollah strikes include a long-range projectile that set off air raid sirens in Tel Aviv. It is to date Hezbollah's farthest strike into Israel. The projectile was intercepted and there were no reports of casualties or damage. Meanwhile, Israel continues to hit targets in southern Lebanon, and there are fatalities. The Lebanese Health Ministry says 51 people were killed today and more than 200 injured. Ukrainian President Vladimir Zelensky closed out his visit this week to the UN with an address this morning to the General Assembly. Dominic Velitis reports.
He once again condemned Russian aggression and once again framed it as a threat beyond Ukraine's borders. On this particular occasion, repeating the allegation Putin is planning to attack Ukraine's nuclear facilities.
If, God forbid, Russia causes a nuclear disaster at one of our nuclear power plants, radiation will not respect state borders.
He also spoke to you about the quest for peace. He said Russia didn't want it, and he questioned China and Brazil's peace proposals, saying they ignored the interests and suffering of Ukrainians and gave Putin the political space to continue the war. He's off next to Washington to pitch his so-called victory plan to Joe Biden. A few details of the plan have emerged. We now know that it includes the security guarantee of NATO membership. We also know Zelensky will use his time with Biden to seek permission to use Western-made long-range weapons inside Russian territory, a big red line, of course, for Moscow. Dominic Velitis for CBC News in Riga, Latvia.
Tropical storm Helene has strengthened into a hurricane as it churns towards Florida. Forecasters warn it could strengthen even more by the time it reaches land Thursday night. Heavy rain is expected to start today. That is the CBC News from Winnipeg.
Hello, Manitoba. You're listening to Radio Noon on CBC Radio 1, 89.3 FM in Winnipeg, 105.3 FM in Dauphin, 94.5 FM in the Paw. I'm Emily Brass, your host today on Radio Noon. Here's what's coming up on the show. The leaves are changing, the days are getting shorter, and for many communities, thoughts of fall suppers come to mind. We'll talk to 3 people from 3 different communities sharing their menus and more. An asteroid is on its way to Earth, but fear not, it is not going to crash into our home planet. It is going to stick around for a while, though. We'll speak with a U of M astronomer about the asteroid and take your questions on what's happening out in space. But first, concerns about Canada's reputation as a global grain supplier as grain shipments pile up at Vancouver's port. Well, some of Manitoba's bulk grain exports are starting to pile up at Vancouver's port. That's after workers at several grain terminals in Vancouver went on strike yesterday. They walked off the job after members of the Grain Workers Union Local 533 couldn't agree on a new contract with their employer, the Vancouver Terminal Elevators Association. So how is that backup affecting prairie producers? Jill Verwey is president of Keystone Agricultural Producers. Hello.
Good afternoon. Happy to be here.
So what was your reaction when you heard the news that workers at several Vancouver grain terminals walked off the job?
I guess time and time over the last year and 18 months, we've seen disruptions that effectively will hamper farmers' ability to deliver grain. And right now, producers are in the field getting this year's crop off and in the bin. And the last thing that, we want to have on our mind after, looking at what the weather is disruptions that aren't going to be able to let us deliver our grain and ultimately pay some bills this fall. So it's just another thing that adds to the additional stress at this time of year.
Yeah. Well, maybe you can explain, how busy is the Vancouver port with respect to bulk grain exports this time of year?
70% of Canada's bulk grain moves through those terminals in Vancouver. It's an essential part of our transportation system to get our grain to our customers. And any disruption is going to be, you're going to feel the impact almost immediately with ships sitting ready to be loaded. And the majority of farmers do continue to market, a good or significant amount of their grain in the fall after they get it off the field. And we depend on having a resilient transportation system, and that port is a very important and crucial part of that transportation system.
Yeah. And Keystone Agricultural Producers represents close to 4,600 Manitoba farmers who are relying, like you mentioned, on those exports going out. How is it affecting them? What are you hearing from them?
I think right now producers are in the combine, and we're hearing with the announcement recently that this is another thing that's adding to their stress at this time of year. And, we just came out of, a summer period later this summer where we were dealing with potential issues on the rail, which I think in some cases aren't 100%, back to capacity. And so now elevators are faced with potentials of shortage of capacity to be able to hold this year's production that's coming off the field. So, that backlog is going to be felt right at the producer level in short time, given the amount of grain that has to be moved at this time of year. We have a short window where we have to move the majority of our grain with the winters that we have. And, the amount of grain that has to move through the prairie provinces to that western port, we depend on this time of year to have a system that's resilient and be able to move without any disruptions.
And given how crucial this time of year is to moving the grain out, what are you hearing from farmers with respect to the timing of this strike? Like, why now?
Storage capacity, I think, is going to be a big issue with the majority of farmers. It's expensive to have that on farm storage. There certainly is even crop in the bin from 2023 because of the pressures that we've been seeing on downward pressure on grain prices. There are a number of producers that have opted to still have even some 2023 grain on the farm. So storage pressures are going to be, affecting producers as well, and just our ability to fulfill those contracts. If elevator storage capacity is full, then elevators aren't going to be able to accept contracts that are out there right now, and so that's putting financial strain on producers because they're not able to deliver on a timely basis so that we can pay our bills here in the fall.
How is this backlog and all these hurdles right now going to affect Canada's reputation as a grain supplier?
And I think that is the key, right? Over the last number of years, we've seen numerous disruptions in the transportation of our product to port to get to our customers. And at the end of the day, if these disruptions continue, then our customers are going to be looking elsewhere for a reliable source of our grain. Producers are very proud of the excellent quality of grain that we can produce, but without a resilient and a predictable transportation system, that puts Canada's reputation on the line. And as a producer and of that grain, then that puts great financial strain on the farm right at our level.
What happens if the strike continues? Like, big picture beyond even this season?
Big picture, I think it's going to have a really negative impact on Canada's ability to fulfill their export objectives that we have. We've been able to, as a nation, I think, be able to provide excellent quality of grain internationally with increased yields. It all has a worldwide effect, even on food security worldwide. And I would hate to see, we need to see and have leadership federally to really emphasize the importance of that transportation system that we have in order that we can continue to be able to export internationally, the product that we produce here on the farm.
Yeah, and speaking of transportation, I mean, are there other options for farmers? Like maybe they could go through Thunder Bay or even up in Churchill. Like how good are those routes? Are there alternatives?
our customers rely on that Vancouver port. You know, I mentioned earlier, 70% of our bulk grain, the infrastructure is there to support that export system that we have right now. It's not something that you can just change and go to another port. It's not something that you can just flip a switch. That's where everything is set up currently. That is where our customers want the grain delivered so that they can pick it up. So it's not something that you can just change. And certainly with the volumes that are going through there, I think we're certainly relieved to see that there is a commitment, from both sides on the Grain Workers Union and the Elevator Association in Vancouver, the terminal there, to get a resolution. But I think we need strong leadership federally to really enforce the importance of it, so that Canada isn't negatively impacted by any further disruptions in transportation.
Okay, thanks so much for joining us today, Jill.
Thank you very much.
Jill Verwey is president of Keystone Agricultural Producers, and you can read more on this on our website, cbc.ca/Manitoba.
Whether it's breaking news from around the world, across the country, or in your own hometown, it's all at your fingertips on the CBC News app. Get the top stories from where you live under the local tab, or watch video clips, live events, and the national on your smartphone or tablet. Get all the news you want, when you want it, where you want it, with the CBC News app. Download the app for free today.
You're listening to Radio Noon on CBC Radio 1, 89.3 FM and 990 AM in Winnipeg. Also broadcasting live on the CBC Manitoba YouTube channel and on the CBC Listen app. I'm Emily Brass. Here's what's still to come on the show. With fall comes fall suppers, those long-standing traditional community feasts. We're going to check in with 3 people from 3 different Manitoba communities about what they have planned for this year's gatherings. And starting Sunday, Earth will have a second moon. It's not science fiction. An asteroid will temporarily be pulled into Earth's orbit. We're going to speak with the director of the Lockhart Planetarium about the asteroid and any other questions you might have about outer space. Call us. Write this number down, 204-780-0893. Again, 204-780-0893. You can also text us at 204-588-7355. Turning now to the forecast for today. Sunny and hot in Winnipeg with a high of 27. Tonight, clear with a low of 15. Tomorrow, sunny, hot again, breezy with a high of 28. Tomorrow night, a few clouds going down to a low of 12. For Friday, mostly sunny and 23. Sunny on Saturday with a high of 25. And a mix of sun and clouds on Sunday with a high of 22. Right now, it's 23 degrees and sunny at the airport. In the Paw, sunny and 22. In Portage La Prairie, sunny and 23. Norway House, 20 and sunny. And in Churchill, mainly sunny and 14 degrees. Well, a big chunk of rock is soaring through space, and we're going to talk about that a bit later. But first, the leaves are changing, the days are getting shorter, and a lot of us might be feeling the urge to fill up at a fall supper. The gatherings are a long-standing tradition in communities across Manitoba, so we're highlighting 3 fall suppers happening this weekend. Faye Levac is president of the Norwood St. Boniface Legion, and she says the supper sells out every year. I spoke with her this morning and asked what makes it so popular.
Well, we cook our volunteers cook the supper. It's a hot turkey meal with turkey and stuffing and meatballs and cabbage rolls and etc. And we cook it. It's not catered. It's our volunteers that do actually the cooking.
Oh, wow. How many volunteers are in the kitchen when you're leading up to this supper?
We have good ones, so it might be up to 10, but that's the people that are helping with the cleanup and the serving And too many people in the kitchen doesn't make it good, so we just have a good, healthy bunch of volunteers. We do have a Saturday night dance, which is still old-time music, so it's a lot of seniors, although there are younger people that come. And they are the majority that participate to come to this event because it is a dance and a dinner. So we dance from 1 to 4 o'clock, and then we have the dinner after that. So they like to come out for a Sunday afternoon and, exercise and then have a meal and go home.
Oh, that sounds like so much fun. And then I can't let you go without asking about the desserts. What's going to be on the dessert menu?
Well, the desserts are pies, so pumpkin, apple, and blueberry pie.
Sounds great. Faye says if you want a seat at the supper in Norwood next year, you better buy your tickets in August. Another fall supper that's selling a lot of tickets is in Ochre River. That's about 26 kilometers southeast of Dauphin. And joining us live over Zoom is Marie Sorley, Recreation Director for the RM of Lakeshore. Hi there, Marie.
Hi, how are you guys?
Oh, doing so good. So tell us how you've been getting ready for the fall supper on Saturday.
Okay, so first of all, we have almost sold out all of our tickets. On Monday, we had our meatball spree over at the community hall, where we had a bunch of volunteers come out and help and roll some meatballs, make and roll some meatballs. The recreation committee, we are a dedicated bunch of people, but we always need a village to make things happen. So that is one of the things that we have done.
How many meatballs do you think you made?
We'll be prepping for the roast and getting the pasta salads ready and all that good stuff. So yeah, we're getting ready.
Yeah, so it sounds like the community hall is packed with volunteers, packed with food. How much meat did you make into meatballs?
So we had 30 pounds of meat from a local producer just down the road here, Myers. And we also have 8 5.5 pound prime roast beef that we're also going to be serving up. So we got meatballs and roast beef. We have corn from the local producers Brunel down the road, and also potatoes from the local producers down the road, also the Brunels. So lots of local community engagement here in Ochre River, and we are looking forward to it. Looks like it's going to be a sold out supper with 150 tickets sold. So we are excited about that.
Wow, 150 tickets sold. It's been a while since there's been a fall supper in Ochre River. How long has it been? And, what has the response been now that it's back?
15 years from what I hear. I haven't been here around here that long. But it sounds like people are getting really excited. There is Facebook messages saying that it's good to see that it's back in town. I think that's the overall kind of consensus, that people are happy to see a fall supper back. The rec ladies, like I said, are dedicated, and we always have community helpers and volunteers when there's community events on like this. So yeah, it's going to be yummy and awesome. And if you want a ticket, I suggest you get a hold of me pretty quickly because there's not many left.
And, you mentioned that it's been a few years. The response has been good. You've sold 150 tickets. Why do you think the fall supper is so important to the community there? And then especially, after taking a break during the pandemic?
That's a really good question. I think it's about, especially after that little bit of a break that we had with, we couldn't get in contact with people. And so I think it's all about that community connection again, seeing people you may not have seen in many years, and then getting together with the family and friends and your neighbors. We don't see our neighbors every day. We don't see our friends and family every day. And it's just a great opportunity to get together and kind of build that community sense of pride back together. So yeah, I think it's good for any community, especially here. We have a wide variety of people signed up and got tickets. There's children and adults and seniors and lots of variety of people coming. So we are looking forward to it.
And before I let you go, Marie, you mentioned all that wonderful locally sourced beef and corn and potatoes that'll all be on the menu. What else is going to be served?
All right. So we also have a wonderful selection of salads because it's fall supper and we want to use our produce. So we're going to have some bean salad. We're also going to have various pasta salads. Well, I'm making one pasta salad for sure, Greek one. Might not be a fall supper one, but it's a good one anyways. And then we also have a whole bunch of yummy desserts. We have cupcakes, and we also had cheesecake because everybody likes cheesecake. And then we also had some yummy brownies that we're going to serve up for dessert. So something for everybody. And yeah, come and get your tickets quickly if you're around the area. But they're selling out. I bet you by the end of today, they'll all be gone.
Oh, wow. So you better jump on that, people out there in Ochre River and surrounding areas. Thank you so much, Marie.
You are very welcome. Thank you for inviting me.
Marie Sorley is Recreation Director for the RM of Lakeshore, and the Fall Supper happens Saturday at 5:30 at the Ochre River Community Hall. Moving a bit farther south now to Starbuck, we have Val Jowett on our Zoom line now, president of the Starbuck Community Hall. Hi, Val.
Hi there.
So your event is called the Fowl Supper. Why is that?
Well, we are I think one of the few that does actually still serve turkey with our supper. That is one of our features.
And I guess that's a long-standing tradition in Starbuck. How long has these fowl suppers been happening?
Well, I've been part of Starbuck now for 23 years, but looking back in all of our fowl supper info here, this is going to be our 72nd fowl supper with turkey.
Wow, that's incredible. What else is on the menu?
Well, we have, of course, turkey and gravy, stuffing, mashed potatoes, coleslaw, peas and carrots, corn, pickles, and beet pickles. And then last year, for the first time, we had buns donated from the Starlight and Homewood colonies that are nearby our town, and they were a huge hit as well. And then we have pies, a selection of lemon meringue, apple, pumpkin, of course. Then I believe there's a baker's choice, and we also have carrot cake. We do have gluten-free options too. This year we've got quite a few, so that'll be a lot easier for some people.
Wow, yeah, really something for everybody. So how important is the fowl supper to people in Starbuck?
Well, this is our biggest fundraiser. We're a not-for-profit organization. We're all totally volunteer-based. The only person that's hired at the hall would be our caretaker. The rest of us just donate our time. And so this keeps us afloat for quite a bit. Like, we don't have anything near this magnitude of what we do.
And so what does the fundraising help, support?
Pretty much all our programming and just being able to keep our doors open for one. It's quite a big facility. As you can imagine, our hydro bills it's substantial. And we do have a lot of programming in our hall. We have Mums and Tot program. We have seniors lunch program once a week. We have all kinds of classes, yoga, pickleball, all that kind of stuff, which if we didn't have the hall, it would be, I'm not sure where we'd hold these events because it's a great venue.
Yeah. And so, of course, an event like this takes a lot of donations, a lot of people buying tickets, but it also takes a lot of volunteers. Who does all the work?
There is, being that we've done this for so many years, people know come September, they're going to be canvassed. The businesses in town are awesome. They've always donate to us. The volunteer base we have here, it's been tougher the last few years, but still it's an amazing community, and we have such an awesome bunch of volunteers that just step up whenever we need them. Even last night we were just doing some final finagling and going, oh shit, we need to fill this, need to fill that. And we threw out a request on Facebook and texted everyone we know, and people just jump in there and they're on board. It's great. It's wonderful.
And you also get the youth involved.
Definitely. A number of years, our servers it's a buffet, but we do have servers who go serve the coffee and juice and check with people and see if they need anything, and just to tell them whatever they need to know. And we've typically gone with young servers, both boys or girls, and they are the hit. They are so great to have involved in the fowl supper. Everybody loves seeing the youth being involved. They also come and help set up. They're great. Both schools in Sanford, the high school, and in Starbuck, the kids have always been amazing at helping out where needed.
Hopefully they keep doing it for years to come. We've only got a little under a minute left, but you mentioned most of Starbuck comes out and attends this event. Who else comes besides people from Starbuck?
There is a lot of people that do come out from Winnipeg. We're really not too far from Winnipeg. We're just 15 minutes from Oak Bluff and Oak Bluff and the perimeter. And there is a lot of seniors, a lot of people that have been here for many of our fall suppers, and they love to come back. They love just reminiscing about it. I had a gentleman tell me his mom lived out in this area. She's near 90 and she likes to still come to the fall supper. We've just got so many supporters from Winnipeg that love to come out and see us year after year. It's wonderful.
Sounds like so much fun. Thanks so much for joining us and telling us all about it, Val.
Oh, thank you for having me.
Val Jowett is president of the Starbuck Community Hall, and their community supper happens on Sunday with 2 sittings at 4 and 6. Well, still to come on Radio Noon, an asteroid is on its way to Earth, but fear not, it is not going to crash into our home planet, but it is going to stick around for a while. We're going to speak with a U of M astronomer about the asteroid and take your questions on what's happening in outer space. Give us a call, 204-780-0893. That's 204-780-0893. The news is next.
This is CBC News. Good afternoon. I'm Rosanna Hempel. At 12:30, it's 22 in Winnipeg. Sunny today, high of 27. It'll feel like 31. The Manitoba government is extending the gas tax holiday. It's brought savings for drivers, but it's also hurt the province's finances. The CBC's Ian Fraze explains.
Drivers are getting a break at the pumps for 3 more months. The NDP promised in last year's election a gas tax holiday. It took effect this January and was only supposed to last for 6 months. But the government has extended the holiday for the second time. It will last the rest of the year. Premier Wabkanu said in a news release the province is doing what it can to address the rising cost of living. The holiday has saved drivers 14 cents a litre. And it's contributed to Manitoba having one of the lowest inflation rates in the country. But it comes at a cost. Manitoba is losing out on $340 million in tax revenue this year. Canoe warned just a few weeks ago the province will soon exercise more fiscal restraint. Ian Fraze, CBC News, Winnipeg.
The president and CEO of Cancer Care Manitoba says they're working on recruitment to deal with burnout issues. Her comments come after a letter from Doctors Manitoba outlined concerns from a number of physicians. They say the workload is excessive and that it's hurting doctor recruitment. They also say there's a fear of leadership and lack of trust. Dr. Shri Navaratnam with Cancer Care says she met with Doctors Manitoba to discuss the complaints, and she's also met with her own staff.
So I met with all the department heads the same evening on Monday because I knew they will be distressed. They are very upset. They feel like they're being undermined, that they didn't know about it. So we are working towards it. I don't know whether I said it, but there is a workload assessment committee being struck.
Navaratnam says they've hired 19 physicians to make up for the 16 who've retired in the past 5 years. The city of Winnipeg wants to make an accessible taxi pilot project a permanent service. In 2022, the city and 2 cab companies started a vehicle for hire dispatch service for people who use wheelchairs or have other mobility needs. At the time, passengers waited as long as 2 hours for an accessible taxi. Now more than 90% of the wait times are down below 20 minutes. City Council will vote next month to make the program permanent with some minor changes. And that is the CBC News from Winnipeg. Your next local CBC News is at 1:30.
And thank you, Rosanna.
You're welcome.
That's Rosanna Hempel from the CBC Manitoba Newsroom. Welcome back to Radio Noon on CBC Radio 1, 89.3 FM in Winnipeg, 97.9 FM in Brandon, and in Flin Flon, 90.9 FM. And joining us now in the studio is our weather specialist, Riley Lachuk. Wow, it's like hot and summer all over again.
Summer once again.
2.0 or 3.0?
3.0 I think we're at now. Yeah, it's hard to keep track. We are going to be seeing another day of above seasonal temperatures here in southern Manitoba, and this trend continues into the next several days. Taking a look at some of our temperatures right now, 24s for both Brandon and Melita. Dauphin, Swan River both at 23 right now. Winnipeg's also at 23 at the moment. 20 into northwestern Ontario, and 18s in both Gimli and Victoria Beach. Thompson, Gillam both at 12 right now. So we are seeing some warm weather starting to move into the southwest corner of the province, and that will spread further east and further north as we get through the day today, as we continue to be under the influence of high pressure. What that's doing is clearing our skies and really allowing some of that warm southern air to really flow into the southern prairies and even parts of northern Manitoba as we get into the rest of the day today and into the day tomorrow as well. We're looking at an extended stretch of some very warm weather. That continues as we get through the rest of the day today into Thursday. We do see a little bit of cloud cover starting to move into parts of northern Manitoba. Some high, thin cloud. With this comes, especially into the later part of Thursday and into early Friday morning, the chance for maybe a couple of isolated showers into the far northwestern corner of Manitoba, Lynn Lake and north, basically looking at a chance of a couple of showers, very short-lived. Back to the sunshine as we get through the day on Friday and into the weekend once again. I have 130 for a forecast high on the map today. That for Swan River, looking at a high of 30 this afternoon. 29s for the rest of Westman. 27 for Winnipeg, I should say, in Portage la Prairie. 27 in Emerson this afternoon as well. 23s and 24s into northwestern Ontario. So really looking at temperatures continuing to climb throughout the day today. 28 degrees on Thursday. 23 for Friday. I know there's a football game happening Friday evening, 7 o'clock. Should be pretty light winds and pretty comfortable temperatures for that. Fingers crossed.
Yeah, usually football season, you're sitting there freezing.
By this time, you're sitting there freezing. You probably won't need the sweater even if you're heading out to that game Friday night. 25 for Saturday, and Emily 22 for Sunday with a mix of sun and clouds.
Thank you so much, Riley.
You're welcome.
That's our weather specialist, Riley Laychuk. He'll be updating the forecast during Up to Speed, which is on the air from 3 to 6. And he'll also be on television doing the forecast on the CBC Winnipeg News at 6. It's 12:35, almost 12:36. You're listening to Radio Noon here on CBC Radio 1. We're also broadcasting over YouTube on our CBC Manitoba YouTube channel and on the CBC Listen app. I'm Emily Brass. Well, a big chunk of rock is soaring through space and it's barreling right towards Earth. But don't worry, the asteroid named 2024 PT5 is not going to hit our planet, but it will stick around, giving Earth a second moon, at least for a little while. Joining us over Zoom to break it down is Danielle Pahoud, director of the Lockhart Planetarium and an instructor in the University of Manitoba's Department of Physics and Astronomy. What do you want to know about the asteroid or anything else happening right now in space? Give us a call at 204-780-0893. Again, the number 204-780-0893. You can also text us. Maybe that's easier right now. 204-588-7355. 588-7355. Hi, Danielle.
Hello.
Hi. So let's start with that asteroid heading our way. When will it arrive and what should we expect when it gets here?
Well, it'll arrive September 29th is kind of when it gets caught up in Earth's orbit, and I suspect not much will change. It's quite small, all things considered. It's about 10 meters across, so we're not going to notice a big difference.
But it is set to become a mini moon? Like, how does that work?
Yeah, moons are defined as orbiting a planet as opposed to the sun. And so right now, planets orbit the sun and moons orbit planets. And so right now the asteroid is orbiting mostly the sun, but as the Earth and the moon and the asteroid get close, Earth's gravity is going to tug on it. And so it's going to do a loop-de-loop around Earth before resuming its orbit around the sun.
Okay. But we won't be able to see it.
No, you would need a pretty hefty telescope in order to see it. It's quite small and it's quite rocky, which means it's not particularly reflective. So it'll be very faint.
Okay. So if it's so faint and so small, how was it noticed to begin with?
There are telescopes and teams of astronomers that are dedicated to searching for these things. And when I say these things, I mean near-Earth asteroids. And so there's a team of astronomers in Spain that use a telescope in South Africa. to look for these things. And so they're constantly monitoring the sky to see if they can notice things that are faint, but they're using telescopes that the average person doesn't have access to.
Okay, my little binoculars aren't going to work for this one.
Unfortunately not this time.
Give us a call if you have any questions about the asteroid, the moons, or anything else that's happening out in space. The number's 204-780-0893, 780-0893, or our text line 204-588-7355. So when should we be worried about an asteroid heading to our planet? You mentioned how, there's that big telescope on the lookout for it. Is that something we should be concerned about?
There's always a risk. The risk is never zero. There are over 34,000 known asteroids in various orbits. And so there's all sorts of things in our solar system. The moon is being impacted by small asteroids fairly regularly. This isn't the first time that Earth has a mini moon. The last time was in 2022. So this happens. It's not rare that something like this happens, but it is rare that an asteroid that's large enough to cause a lot of damage would impact the Earth. And so if this were to crash into the Earth, it would most likely cause a fireball, so a really bright shooting star. And some of it might strike land, and then it would cause some impact there, but it wouldn't be a huge extinction level event. Those are really infrequent, so I wouldn't be too worried about those.
Okay, that's pretty reassuring. And kind of a basic question for you here. I mean, what is an asteroid?
Great. That's a great question. An asteroid is a rocky body that orbits the sun in our solar system. And so when our solar system was formed, it was made up of gas and dust and rocks and ice, and everything was orbiting around the sun and kind of clumping together into planets. And asteroids are, we think, the leftovers from that process. And so things that never quite got swept up into a planet. And so, or if planets smashed together in the early solar system billions of years ago, then they would kind of stick around in these orbits. And so asteroids typically are rocky and orbit between Mars and Jupiter, but they're kind of scattered throughout the inner solar system.
Wow. Okay. Interesting. Give us a call. You might be wondering, maybe you've seen something out in space that you have questions about, and Danielle is the person to answer them. So give us a call at 204-780-0893. What have you seen in space that you have questions about? What are you looking forward to seeing out in the night sky? 204-780-0893. And the text line is 204-588-7355. So what other exciting cosmic events are you looking forward to right now, Danielle?
There are a few of them. The first is that the sun is reaching solar maximum. The sun has this 11-year cycle where it goes from fairly quiet to lots of activity. And so the sun has been really active. And so there's a good chance of aurora this season. So I'm looking forward to hopefully some aurora. There was a faint showing late last night. And I'm also looking forward to a comet. So there's a comet that is visible in the early morning from Winnipeg, but it's right now it's like just barely visible to the naked eye if you're in a dark sky. But the predictions have it brightening up quite a bit over the next few weeks. So I'm really looking forward to a potential comet sighting.
In fact, you're even giving a presentation on it, aren't you?
I am, yeah. The Lockhart Planetarium at the University of Manitoba does monthly open houses on the last Wednesday of every month, and the topic changes from month to month. And this month I'll be talking about the comet, what comets are, and how to spot this one in a few weeks.
So give us a call and find out. Maybe you want to know how to spot that comet. Maybe you want to know more about the heightened aurora borealis that Danielle mentioned. The number is 204-780-0893. Again, 204-780-0893. Our text line is 204-588-7355, 204-588-7355. Give us a call. So how did you get interested in astronomy, Danielle?
My parents were really great about waking us up for astronomical events. So if there was a comet or if there was northern lights, we had a cabin in a really dark sky, and then pair that sense of wonder that I was fostered as a kid with some really great physics and astronomy teachers and math teachers in high school and university. And I sort of fell into it. I've loved it for as long as I can remember. And I feel like I had a really supportive environment that allowed me to pursue it. So, yeah.
Yeah, because, you mentioned being woken up for sightings even when you were a child. What are some of the favorite things you've seen out there with all your looking at the sky over the years?
Oh, I mean, comets are pretty special to me. I definitely remember my parents waking us up for the Hale-Bopp comet, northern lights fairly frequently, and then just driving in from the cabin late at night. And the northern lights, the last time the sun was this active, I was in early university. And so up late at night and observing getting to see them has always been really special. I just find them mesmerizing.
Yeah. And before I let you go, I was curious, you said how you'd been given some opportunities, and we don't see very many women in science, women directing a planetarium like you being an instructor in physics and astronomy. What would you say to the young women out there who are interested in astronomy?
I would say go for it. It is a wonderful career. I feel very fortunate to do it. There are an increasing number of women in physics and astronomy, and our department has a women plus, so people that identify as women and are other members of other minority groups. And so we have a nice supportive environment. So find mentors, find friends, go through it together. And it's worth pursuing.
Okay. So we have a text now. Stephen wrote to us from St. Andrews, and he wants to know, what does ISS do to protect itself from meteor showers, the International Space Station? You've been mentioning how there's so many and there are more that we don't see. How do they protect against that?
That's a really good question. I don't know for sure. I would guess that there are compartments that would protect the astronauts for that. I believe on Friday, the Manitoba Museum is having the Canadian Space Agency astronaut Jeremy Hansen in town. So that would be probably a better question for him. But I suspect they have compartments in case of emergency ready for astronauts, because there's very little margin for error when they're in space.
Yeah, there's probably some very serious protective gear there. Now we have another text too. Someone wants to know, where is this second moon happening? The asteroid, like where, and I guess some details on how and where there.
Oh my goodness. So everything is always moving. So I can't really answer where without a when. It's going to kind of swoop in and do a loop-de-loop around the Earth and the moon. But it's constantly going to be moving. So there's not a good answer to where.
Okay, because it's always like moving at a very high rate.
Yeah, so there's no one spot in the sky that you'll be able to look the whole 2 months and see the moon. So in the same way that the moon moves through the sky over the course of a month, this asteroid will be moving from night to night.
And how does it get pulled into an orbit around Earth? Like you said, there's so many meteors just flying around. Why is this one going to stick around?
Yeah, so the sun is by far the most massive object in the solar system, so its gravity is the strongest. But the asteroids orbit around, and then depending on the timing, sometimes they'll pass by Earth's orbit, but the Earth will be on the opposite side of the orbit, and so Earth's gravity doesn't have any influence. But if the asteroid happens to be coming around when the Earth is in that part of its orbit, then the Earth's gravity might pull on the asteroid a little bit and cause it to do this loop-de-loop.
And how does it leave again then if it's pulled in?
If it's pulled in, what happens when the Earth's gravity pulls it in is often it's a little bit of a tug or a little bit of a redirect. It's not necessarily a complete capture. And then we also have, if the asteroid gets close enough, the moon's gravity, which will tug on it a little bit. And each of those tugs will speed the asteroid up or slow it down. And then depending on its speed and its position or the direction it's going, it might do a loop-de-loop that's kind of more pretzel shaped and then shoot back out.
Wow.
So it's not necessarily closing into it's not necessarily in spiraling. It could really be kind of a bow shape.
Wow, interesting. It'd be interesting to map out its movement. We have another text now. Hi, I live in northern Manitoba. A week ago Sunday, I was kayaking and I saw a flash of light parallel to the water. I felt I could almost grab it, and this was before the stars came out around 8:30. What might that have been?
Oh my goodness. There's a series of I mean, it's hard to answer without being able to see it and getting a sense of how quickly it was moving. But things that are quite bright before the stars come out, it could have been an asteroid burning up in the atmosphere. So shooting stars meteors are asteroids that are burning up in the atmosphere. Shooting stars can be chunks of rock anywhere from the size of my thumb to the size of a basketball or a small car. And so if those burn up in the atmosphere, they can cause very bright streaks of light. The International Space Station is often visible a little bit before, like kind of after sunset, but before the stars come out, and it's quite bright. NASA has recently launched a solar sail that reflects a lot of light, and that's also quite bright. So there are a number of options. Without knowing kind of exactly where you were and how bright and how fast it was moving, it's hard for me to answer more specifically, but there are some options.
Sounds like it was a beautiful sight. Thanks so much for that text. And thank you, Danielle, for joining us and explaining so much of this complicated stuff in such an easy to understand way.
My pleasure.
Danielle Bahoud is director of the Lockhart Planetarium and an instructor in the University of Manitoba's Department of Physics and Astronomy.
What's new in news? How about a streaming channel from CBC that goes beyond the news? Get the big picture with a closer look at everything from dating to music to crime in the new series Big. Discover daily conversations about the questions we're all asking on About That with Andrew Chang. And for all the fascinating things on Earth, watch Planet Wonder. CBC News Explore. Available free on CBC Gem and CBC News app.
10 minutes before 1 o'clock, and you're listening to Radio Noon on CBC Radio 1, 89.3 FM in Winnipeg, 99.9 FM in Gillam, 105.3 FM in Swan River. Well, if getting your kids to eat fruit and vegetables is a losing battle, there's new research you might want to hear about. A study published in the Journal of Child Psychology and Psychiatry found that picky eating has more to do with your genes than your parents. Catherine Walton is a registered dietitian and a professor who studies children's eating behaviors at the University of Guelph, and she explains how the study was conducted.
So this was a large study of twins in the United Kingdom, where parents filled out questionnaires about their children's eating habits and their fussy or picky eating behaviors when the children were 16 months, 3, 5, 7, and 13 years. So this is a very large and long twin study. Twin studies are really neat because they can help us understand the role of genetics, the shared home environment, and the unique environment. So anything that's different between the twins, like their friends. So the researchers compared the similarity in fussiness between non-identical twins, so fraternal twin pairs, who share 50% of their genes, with identical twin pairs who share 100% of their genes. And what they found is that those identical twin pairs were much more similar in their fussy eating than the non-identical twin pairs, indicating that there's a large genetic influence in these fussy or picky eating behaviors, which is really neat. They also found that these identical twin pairs became more different as they got older, so telling us that the unique environment plays a larger role as kids get older. The team also found that average levels of food fussiness or picky eating were quite stable over time. So for many kids, this isn't just a phase, and so without support, picky eating may persist. So it's not just a phase that kids may grow out of, which I think, again, for parents, that can be helpful to know if they're struggling. But that doesn't mean that because genetics play a large role that these behaviors are totally set. So particularly in the early years, things we can do in the home environment can help and be impactful. So sitting down together as a family and eating the same foods as our children, exposing them to as much variety as we can, even when they're not keen on a food. So offering small amounts of different foods to avoid food waste. Children are still learning and their taste buds are still developing. So allow them lots of exposures around helping prep foods. We know that kids who are involved in meal prep are more likely to try foods. And for our most hesitant eaters, it may take time, and that's okay. These aren't overnight fixes. Because we see that picky eating is relatively stable over time, we're playing the long game here.
Catherine Walton is a registered dietitian and a professor who studies children's eating behaviors at the University of Guelph. From Ottawa, that was Juno Award-winning guitarist Tony D with a new song called Modern Times. His new album comes out October 23rd. Well, just a few minutes before the end of the show, and Faith Fundal from Up to Speed joins us now. What's coming up on the show today?
Emily, some doctors at Cancer Care Manitoba complain about increasing workloads, burnout, and a distrust of leadership. It is all detailed in a letter obtained by CBC, written by Doctors Manitoba. We're going to get reaction from the president and CEO of Cancer Care Manitoba coming up on the program later today.
Wow, that's an important conversation. Mm-hmm. Thank you so much, Faith.
Thank you.
That's Faith Fundal, host of CBC's Up to Speed, which is on the air from 3 to 6 p.m. Well, thanks to everyone who gave us a call today and sent us a text asking questions about outer space. We really appreciate you reaching out. And thanks to everyone who helped us put together the show and keep the show on the air. That includes our studio technician, Sierra Sanders, our show director, Wendy Parker, Kevin Nipatebo is managing and producing our CBC Manitoba YouTube live stream. I'm Emily Brass, and I'll be here through Friday. Coming up on Radio Noon, or on Radio 1 rather, Writers and Company. So keep it tuned to CBC Radio 1. Have a great afternoon.